for the efficiency hour, why we need lean. So my name's Glenn. I manage the Supply Chain Northeast project for NEPIC. Those who don't know, Supply Chain Northeast is a fully funded business support program for SMEs in our region. If you'd like to find out more about the fantastic work we're doing to support local businesses and to find out if you and your business are eligible for support, you can head to supplychainnortheast.co.uk. Delivering the session today, we have two great companies who've been a part of the program with NEPIC. We have Rita and Arjang from GlowLed. GlowLed offer a full commercial lighting service and an energy efficient specialist offering bespoke solutions for its clients. And we have Phil and David from Infinite Brilliance. Infinite Brilliance are lean practitioners who work directly with your business to reduce costs, eliminate waste and improve productivity. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Rita.
That's great. Morning, everybody. I can't see everybody, but I'm presuming that these black boxes mean that there are people listening to us this morning. Oh, good. I heard a voice. Lovely. Morning. Thank you, Glenn, for the opportunity for us all to deliver this interactive session to NEPIC members and guests today. Really excited about it because we've got so much to say on the subject.
Yeah, they got.
Oh, I think we've got somebody else on the call. Never mind, I'll keep on talking. We've certainly got value for money today as you've got 4 presenters, but if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll answer them in the Q&A session at the end. So on my first slide, right, we're up and running. As I said, I'm Rita Callender, Lighting Solutions Manager at GlowLed, and I'm here today with our director, Arjang Bayat, who we'll be hearing from shortly. He's definitely the technical bod behind this, and so if you've got any technical questions, he's your man. We are a well-established, family-owned business based in Washington, working across the Northeast and Scotland, and very passionate about being, working in the Northeast. We design, we supply, install, and commission lighting systems, or you can have any combination of these. We're actually a successful VAR. For those who don't know what that is, that's a value-added reseller for a large range of pioneering lighting manufacturers. This gives our customers access to lighting solutions that would traditionally be more expensive to access. So effectively, we're cutting out the middleman or the wholesaler, and we deliver value for money on high performance products. So you can assure that everything you get from us is a really good quality product. So I think we're on the next slide, please. These photos are a few examples of the industries we have helped and we're also currently helping to undertake many different processes. As you can see, there's lots of different things happening in there. It could be warehousing, manufacturing, distillers, all sorts of different processes. So we can help any industry and help you with your problems. So finally, in my last slide, we have the pleasure in advising and working with a diverse range of clients, some of whom are NEPIC members, such as Wilton Engineering, which you'll see listed there. And we're currently offering a free survey and quotation for any client who would like to, any NEPIC member who would like to come forward. So please, by all means, contact me because I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, I'll hand over to David now from Infinite Brilliance, and we're so pleased to be collaborating with you, David.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you, Glenn, for giving us this opportunity. David Cowie from Infinite Brilliance. We are lean practitioners, as we said. The way that we work, obviously we work with teams of people and look to make improvements and make your processes more efficient. It's obviously very much reliant on teamwork and bringing teams together and interacting with teams where you maybe got people in different functions who don't normally speak with each other and collaborate. That's very much how we work our sessions. Obviously, it's very difficult to do something like this online. So we're going to try and make it as interactive as we can. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you, if you can put your cameras on, that'd be great, but don't worry about it. But what we're going to do is ask you and give you 30 seconds to go away and get something that's blue and something that's yellow, please. Okay, so we'll give you 30 seconds to go and do that, please. Might be something on your desk or something close by. Excellent, good job. Well, I hope no one's tripped over anything or had any incidents when you've been moving around there, because I've seen some frantic moving around. So if you can just hold up what you've got, blue and yellow. Brilliant, that's excellent. When we first thought of this, we thought it might be difficult to find something in certain colours. We obviously thought through different combinations, but it's good to see that people have been able to find those sorts of things. So during the session, we'll be asking questions, I guess, as a tester. During lockdown 1, how many people bought the same amount of toilet rolls? If it's the same amount, hold up blue. If you bought more than you would normally, hold up yellow. Yeah, so a lot of people buying. So Glenn's buying all of those extra toilet rolls that I can see. That's why there were shortages. Glenn couldn't get in his house because he'd bought them all. Excellent. So a little bit about lean. What is lean? Okay, a little video to show you here.
Right, hi everybody, Phil Lax, Infinite Brilliance. First of all, I'm just going to take you through why you need lean, why it's important. So you've got this axis where it's got cost going up the left-hand side and time along the bottom. In business, the most important thing is about making money, so protecting that margin. And what dictates that, because the world's become a whole lot smaller, is there's a global market price that people are willing to pay for a product or a service. Putting pressure on our margin, we've got our internal and external, I guess, things that we measure in terms of our materials, our wages, and our utilities, which obviously we'll be touching on with the guys from GlowLed, how they're looking at the efficiencies around that. That's constantly going up and putting pressure on our margin, as well as customers are coming to us and saying, right, okay, if we're going to give you some more work, can we have some cost reduction? You know, we're feeling the pinch here. So that's putting pressure on our margin. So what we need to do is, in terms of what we can control, our internal costs, we need to be globally competitive. So that actually protects our margin and actually could grow it if we improve our efficiencies and our processes. So that's kind of where continuous improvement or lean, that's where you apply in them lean tools, you can kind of get the benefit, and it saves you money. So over to Arjang, who's going to take you through, I guess, some examples around the lighting aspect and how they're looking to save money.
Arjang, you're on mute.
Hello, right, we'll try that again. Obviously, we're involved in lighting. Thank you for the opportunity to work with Infinite Brilliance on this, because a lot of what they talk about is a lot of what we talk about. Hopefully today I'm going to try and give you a bit of an explanation about how something that is normally undertaken could actually add extra value if it was viewed in a different way. Obviously those three letters on the screen at the moment, everybody's moving towards that. It's a solid choice, it's a good decision. You're going to save money and reduce energy consumption, which everybody's very conscious of at the moment, and doing that is certainly going to be a good thing for the business. You're going to make some savings. You might even put occupancy sensors on lights, on LED lights, and again, that'll bring savings down. But today I want to ask the question, is that going to enable you to actively maximize the value from this particular element? So you want to make a positive impact on your business. You're thinking about lean, or you're already involved in a lean investigation. There's three main areas of that. There's the facility, there's the people in the facility, and there's the processes undertaken in that space or across the business. Now, looking at LEDs on their own, yes, it's a good idea, but we were hoping to try and get people to start thinking about lighting as a business operations opportunity, something that can give insight into what's happening in a facility. Something's gone crazy then, sorry. We've got that jumped a bit. Yeah, something that gives improved working conditions for the people, or emergency lighting, something that improves safety, and possibly something that can improve productivity and efficiency in processes. Now, how do we go about tying these three elements together into a whole by something as simple as lighting? Well, it's because lighting is the most widely distributed element in a business. Probably like after utilities, I would say everywhere that has work, has processes, has storage, has access, has transport, needs to be lit. So what if you took the idea of your lighting network and turned it into a vehicle that would enable you to get the insights required to further drive continuous improvement? If you look at lighting as one part of a intelligent network, whereby it creates the network in the sky, on the ceiling, and becomes part of an ecosystem, is probably the best way of describing it, of other wireless intelligent data gathering nodes, which enable visibility and insight into what's happening on the shop floor, in the warehouse, in other areas of the business. And that's basically what I'm here to talk to you about today, but I thought I'd just drop this in brief first, and we will explore it in a bit more detail later on.
Thanks, Arjan. So I guess kind of what Arjan's touched upon there is around kind of lighting. Everybody takes it as a gimme, it lights the place, but obviously we can use it for collecting data. So linking into the lean, I guess, measures, which are the four key domains of our safety, quality, cost, and delivery, which are obviously all based around people, which is the most important part of any process. But I guess ultimately what we've got to do once we've established what our safety, quality, cost, and delivery metrics are understand what the customer wants. So it's really, really important that our metrics drive the right behaviors to give the customer what he wants. That's really, really important. And we need to understand how our metrics work together to give the customer complete value for money. Ultimately, once we understand our customer needs, we can start to align our internal metrics to make sure that our processes are delivering what the customer wants. Because ultimately, like I say, what gets measured gets done, which is really, really important. We collect that data, but as important is the people part. So using people within our business, the experts around the process, and also understanding what actually goes on in the process. So go get your boots on, go and have a look. So collect the data, see what the data says, talk to the people, and go to the actual area where the work's being carried out. Then we can see what's really happening. So how can lean work for you? I guess just asking you guys, yeah, we're back to the blue and yellow. So if you see on this picture a glass half full, hold up your blue item. If you see it half empty, hold up your yellow item. It's very tense, this, isn't it? Cool. So lots of blues there, which is really good. So I guess if it's blue, would we class it as optimistic because we're half full? Yeah, get in. We've still got half a glass of water there, which is great. If we're yellow, are we pessimistic? Oh no, God, we've only got half a glass of water. Where's the other half gone? Could be optimistic, could be pessimistic. But I guess from a lean perspective, if we're thinking, well, why is the glass that big? Could we not have a smaller glass? Because that's all we need for that amount of water. Then we're starting to think from a lean perspective. It's very much, it's a mindset that we ask people to think, and it's just starting to think about things a different way. So how we do it, we've got our temple of continuous improvement. This is not, we're not going to ask anybody, or do we ask anybody to join some weird sect? This is just a pictorial representation of the lean tools. So you've got your 5S, which is your foundation, which is about setting a safe, stable working environment. Then you look at the wastes and you categorize them to help you look at them, to understand what they are and eliminate them. Use some visual management to help us control our process. And then we'll look to standardize what we're doing. They're the base tools in terms of a basic improvement activity. Our drivers in the roof are our measures in terms of our safety, quality, cost and delivery, them domains. And then we've got the two pillars up either side, which is all about creating the environment. So we've got our management support and then telling people what we're actually doing and why and what the impacts are. And that's all around creating the environment. And then there's the approach. So whatever we choose to do, we'll use the plan, do, check, act. So it's a structured approach. Anything we're going to do, we'll plan what we're going to do, we'll carry it out, check the results, and then act accordingly. So it's really, really simple, just putting a little bit of structure in place.
So 5S, back to your blue and your yellow again. Look at this picture here, cutlery drawer, okay? Whose cutlery drawer at home looks like the top one or similar to the top one, organized? Hold up your blue. And if it looks like the bottom one, hold up your yellow. Okay, so on screen there I can see a few blues and a couple of yellows, yeah? So what some of you might not know, that you may have not even heard of 5S, but actually applying 5S, the ones that have said blue as the top color, because you're putting things in order, you're applying the 5S principles.
So what it is, it's a systematic approach which helps us standardize our work environment, so it makes it look the same every time we come to it. We use it to help eliminate waste, reduce our non-value-added activities, and maximize our value-added activities. What that basically means is that we've got all the tools in the right place to do the job when we need them. And ultimately, it's about creating a safe, stable working environment so it remains the same all the time. So what they are, so you've got sort, which is separating the essentials from your non-essentials. Set and order, which is creating homes, locations for things. You've got maintaining in terms of the shine, the first two S's. Then looking to standardize, so it's looking whatever, I guess, control measures you've put in place, are they right? Could we improve them? And then we'll look to sustain it and look where else we can roll out 5S. It's all about applying that methodology. The power of it, I guess we did an activity looking in an assembly shop where we had 3 key bits of equipment that were letting the business down and costing an awful lot of money. And before we'd actually carried out a 5S activity, it equated to 254 hours of unplanned downtime in the plant. Carried out the 5S activity with the team, basically returned the items as close as we could to the original condition when we bought them. Obviously that had a cost involved, and then implemented the 5S methodology, so put some control metrics in place after we'd made the improvement. And after the activity, for the remainder of the year, there was only 1 hour of unplanned downtime equated on that bit of equipment. That's not saying that there wasn't issues that they had to repair on that piece of equipment. It was that catastrophic failure, so something that they weren't planning for. Because as part of the 5S, they were taking it out to do them kind of preventative checks and changes, it made just such a huge improvement, which was over £600,000 on an annual basis. So then we'll look at waste. I guess that was the second block, if you like, of the temple. First of all, we need to understand the divisions of work. So for every week we go to work, it's split up crudely into three key areas. So you've got your value added, which is anything that changes nature, shape or characteristic of a product or service in line with what the customer's asking for. Then you've got your non-value added, which is anything that's necessary under current conditions but doesn't add value. And then we've got all the rest, which is waste. So that makes up our working week. The idea of an 8 waste activity is to eliminate the waste, so get rid of it completely, anything that we shouldn't be doing, minimize the non-value added. And in terms of the value added, you maximize that. So what that does, it creates time to do more value added activities. So if you look on that green section, it's not actually increasing that part of it. It's just creating more time where you can go and do more value added activity. So what the 8 wastes are, an easy way to remember them is downtime. It's just an easy acronym to remember the wastes. I guess looking at an 8 waste activity, another case study that we did, we worked with a company on a bottleneck process, and the setup was originally 13.5 hours on this main running bottleneck process. The remit that the team had was they couldn't spend any money. So it was literally, we need to save money, we need to save time, but you can literally, I guess a little bit like scrap heap challenge, you can use what we have within the 4 walls of the business. If you can do that, then fine, we'll support you. So we looked at it with the team. They knew the remit of the activity, which was a challenge. They carried out a setup improvement activity where they were identifying the value added, non-value added and waste, and I guess eliminating the waste, minimizing the non-value added. And on that setup, they managed to reduce it to 9.5 hours, which was a big chunk of time. 30% reduction with no investment, which equated on that bottleneck machine in terms of the hourly rate of £216,000 annually, just on that particular setup. Over to Arjan, who's going to go through heat maps.
Hello again. Okay, trying to follow on from some of the concepts that the guys have been talking about. We could pretty much touch most of the letters of the previous acronym when we sat down and thought about it. And we thought, hang on a minute, people have solved problems which would classify under those waste characteristics by implementing an intelligent system, lighting system, sorry. And one of the main things that we were talking about is being able to see the information come back, and heat maps. Everyone's fully aware of what a heat map represents. The difference in color is pretty it's pretty straightforward and easy to understand. And obviously, if anybody recognizes the chap on the left, it was very useful for him trying to get some visual recognition going on here. Is it clicking? Oh yeah. So what if you could have a heat map on your facility or facilities? You get data in similar to the information that the chaps are talking about before. Choose what you want to see, from when you want to see it, what time, and what information you want. And we try and ask people, what do you think that would look like if you could get that information in and then back out in a form which is useful. It's useful for sharing with people. I was just scribbling some notes down here in terms of the communication and the management support pillars that the guys were talking about before. Visual information is a lot easier to share. You can give somebody a spreadsheet and they're like, what am I looking at? If that information's been processed and presented in a manner that's easy to go with, we found that the heat map thing works very well in that situation. So I've got an example of facility data visualization. This is occupancy data. It's occupancy data that's been collected by the distributed network of lights across this facility, and provided everything's going to plan, whoever's interrogating this particular data set should be able to put information in the date range and the time hours on the left, and it should verify what they would expect to see. Sometimes, more often than not actually, it shows up things that they weren't expecting to see, which prompts further investigation. So if you think back to the acronym that the guys had before about wastes, things to do with transport, traveling, transport, motion, we've had people start to think about how they could change the way inventory as well is stocked in a warehouse. They're getting information from the lighting system that's telling them that that aisle's accessed on that day, that this aisle's accessed on this day, this aisle's accessed only one day a week. Why is that stuff up there? Forklifts are having to travel further. What's the cost of that? There's the power cost, the energy cost of the forklifts. There's the time involved in traveling. What would happen if we moved that stock to an area that's got more activity on that day? What's that going to equate to? They start making changes to the way something as simple as warehouse stocking is undertaken as a result of getting this data. And this is only one element. Effectively, the occupancy data that's gathered is acting as a correlate for activity in the site. So I've got some more examples here of facility heat maps. This is a large fabrication facility, and it's just to show the way that someone can take this information and understand what's going on in the space. So this site's probably like 160 meters long. It's a big fabrication shed, and they kept coming back and saying, we're getting anomalous data from this, what's going on? I said, okay, so we've got 30 days average occupancy here across the space. Obviously you can see where most of the work's being done. And they said, why have we got this high energy use on this single row in the center? Turns out they verified that. Obviously you can see the data there. The average data for that particular light was 2.8 kilowatt hours average daily use. Bearing in mind they used to have 1 kilowatt high pressure sodium lights on the roof, so that is a significant change. But by comparing energy use with the row next door, they were like, so this one's only using 1.2, the one before was using over 2. What's going on here? How, like, surely everything should be the same. We said, well, why don't we look at what's going on for the amount of daylight that's coming into that particular space? And lo and behold, when you overlay the amount of energy saving that was undertaken by dimming down due to ambient light, there was a particular structure in this area which was a clear obstruction from the skylights, and it was basically preventing the lights from getting the natural ambient light coming in from the roof, and therefore they weren't saving as much energy. They're only saving 0.56 kilowatt hours from that particular space, compared to the adjacent one. So it's almost the inverse of the previous measurements, where that's got over a 2 kilowatt hour average daylight saving, and it's literally 10 meters. There's 10 meters between one row of lights and the next. I mean, ultimately this wasn't going to cause any problems. Once they understood what was going on, it did start to then prompt them to think about, maybe we should change the way that we apply the settings for this, or we should go in and we should speak to production. Facilities going and speaking to production and actually coming up with a plan where they could communicate with each other about what was happening in the space, so that they could then better ensure the working area was well lit, and at the same time they weren't consuming energy that was unnecessary in that area. So we've got a graph here. Again, we're talking about communication and management support and management like graphs. This particular graph shows the purple section is the previous baseline before the installation. The amber dirty brown sort of line is the consumption if they'd just gone straight to LED and the LEDs were operating 24/7 just like the old lights were. And the blue line is what they ended up consuming from the intelligent lighting system that they installed. And you can see, when you actually see the figures that are involved, over a 3-year period, there was a 93% saving, with approximately 156k saved just on lighting energy that in that one single shed. Which, when you go back and say, we've implemented this, and look, I can show you what difference it's made. We've had other customers say, I keep getting asked, if we make these improvements, how much has it saved us? All the customer, or my customer, but the guy on the ground knows is that system's now working now how it should. But their management are saying, yeah, but how much has that saved us? And until they start thinking about adding other elements to that network that we talked about with the different types of sensors, if it's power meters or compressed air sensors, it's a very difficult thing to quantify. A lot of these compressors nowadays have got fancy information that will tell you what they're kicking out, but it's difficult to find out how much of that output is then delivered to source and is meeting the requirements at source or being wasted further down the line. So we also like to show people this, which is, because something can measure the amount of ambient light, it can also calculate how much energy is being saved as a result of that. This particular facility, it's quite pronounced. Obviously the graph's quite dense because it's over a 3-year period, but still, again, over that 3-year period, the amount of energy they saved as a result of being able to use ambient light still significantly exceeded the amount of energy they actually used. So again, dimming, maybe not, well, dimming on its own is going to make a difference, but if there's resources available, we've talked about waste and other elements that can contribute. I mean, this is almost like taking advantage of a wasted opportunity rather than a specific waste. If there's light there, why not use it? And lastly from me, there's a video here. I apologize in advance, it's very American, but it's from our partners who developed and manufacture the system that we implement. But it does a very good job of explaining that. But I'll just play through this and I'll pass you back to the guys after.
Patterns in nature provide important clues about overall health. Look closer and you can find hidden vulnerabilities and problems. That's true of your facility too. Your operations need to be in peak condition, always. We think of it as facility wellness. We start by gathering critical data, the lifeblood of your operation. Careful, constant monitoring reveals new insights. You'll know more, so you can do more. Cut costs and boost performance. Keep your employees safe. Make your business more productive and sustainable. People, equipment, materials, working together efficiently every day. That's facility wellness, only from Digital Lumens.
Well, we don't need to see it twice.
Thanks for that.
So well.
No problem.
I'll kind of I'll bring the American accent down with a tad of Geordie. So
it's much nicer on the ears. Yeah.
Back to what Arjan was saying there about the important things around any process, which again is like your people, your material, and your equipment. So it's all about understanding that. And I think that was a really good example as well with the heat maps of that. That's great data, but then you need to go and have a look, which Arjan mentioned, you need to have to go and have a look at the process and see what's actually causing our issues. So visual management is all part of kind of what Arjan's just been talking about. And ultimately we use it to visually communicate simply and quickly at all levels. What we'll always say is if you put any visual management in place and it needs explaining, there's something wrong. It needs to be something that just ultimately needs no interpretation and provokes a reaction. great example, traffic lights. If it's on red, most people know we've got to stop, not speed up to try and get through. So it provoked, we know it's kind of instilled in us in terms of using lights, signs and colours on a daily basis. Again, with an ambulance, we know straight away if that pulls up behind us, even before it puts its siren on, hang on a sec, there's a good bit of visual management. Yeah, we need to get out of the way. They've even, obviously, ambulances backwards, so it's spelled the right way in your mirror. I think it took me a good few years to realise that. I used to always think, why is that spelled backwards? But anyway. But again, visual management's really, really powerful. And again, touching on what Arjan said there, with collecting all that really good data and visually showing it, it's really important then to communicate what the savings are and the benefits. So a little case study we did using a form of visual management. There was a process which was a problem process, and everybody within the business didn't like this process, but nobody knew exactly what was going on. So we did a process mapping activity to actually visually get the process up so we could see what was going on, and brought the functions together. So it was like a cross-functional activity. The original, I guess, state was it was taking 40 hours to get parts through this process. So we worked with the team, visualized it. A lot of people were like, well, I didn't realize that happened there, and I didn't realize this happened here. And just by getting people to visually look at it and work together, it managed to unlock a lot of really, really simple answers where people were saying, well, do you need that part now as a customer? And you were saying, yeah, well, that holds me up actually carrying out my process. So by them working together and visually seeing it, they managed to get the process from 40 hours down to 12 hours. Again, just by moving things around, getting the process to work for the overall process rather than the individual functions. And that realized a 70% reduction in overall process time and equated to £415,000, which again, it's a massive saving. And that came just by visually having the current state and saying, right, how do we want to improve this and how we're going to maintain it? So standardized work, I guess a question looking at standardized work, if I was asking everybody on this call, how would you get from the Central Motorway in Newcastle to South Shields? Various different routes, yeah, various different times, I guess could cost us various different amounts in fuel. But if we're looking to standardize something, we're looking to agree what the format is that we're going to use to get from Newcastle to South Shields. So we understand that the best method of getting there safely. So what standardized work's all about is the best way to safely combine the process inputs to guarantee our outputs every single time. I think the key thing with standardized work, it's really, really important you involve the experts within the process to come up with the best way to do things and how it's going to work. And also we put the right measures in place. And it's not necessarily the fastest way of carrying out a process, because that's not kind of repeatable if you spread it out and roll it out across people. So it's about having something that hits our customer demand, and it's something that can be rolled out and we can train people to do it. In order for that to happen, it's back to those two key pillars. So the management support and the communication. We've got to create the environment and time for it to happen. If we don't, then it won't. So we need that support. It's about empowering the experts. So the experts who are the guys carrying out the tasks, that they come up with ideas about how it's going to work and how it's going to be sustained. And ultimately, if we do that and we use the lean tools, it is ultimately going to save us time, money, and help improve our process and our output. And most importantly, I guess it's going to empower the guys to be able to want to make this sustainable and roll it out and carry it out looking at other processes.
Okay, so just going on to the last slide here. I know we asked at the start if you had any questions, just to type them in the chat box. I haven't had a chance to look at the chat box, but if you've got any questions, this is the last slide. So if you want to put them in there, feel free to do that when I'm taking you through this slide. So this is about reacting and adapting to change. Obviously something that we've all had to do recently. So using, again, your blue and your yellow. Blue, if somebody says you've got to change, how do you feel about it? Do you have one or more of these feelings? Hold up your blue. And if you don't have any of these feelings, hold up your yellow. So blue, if you have more than one of these feelings when someone tells you that the things are going to change. Okay. So lots of blue and some of both. So when you're talking about change, it's about changing the way that you work. So there's a thing called the emotional cycle of change. Okay. So where you possibly are in a job now that you're doing now, you're comfortable with how your job works. You understand how it works. You don't really have to think too much about what you're doing. You know how things work. You know who to go and speak to. You know what the format of things is, processes. If you think what it's like when you decide that that job is no longer for you and you change jobs and you change roles, you go through that feeling of, oh my God, what have I done? You've got to retrain yourself. You've got to go through that relearning process of the new people, the new ways, the new style of doing things, even though it could be the same job, before you get back to that kind of autopilot again at the end. Like I say, we've all kind of gone through this cycle of change over the last year, when with COVID, it's probably the only time in our lives that we're all going to go through the same process at the same time. Because I would like to think this isn't going to happen again during our lifetime. But we've all had these different feelings as we've gone through it, which has affected our performance. So it's absolutely normal to feel unsure of change, but generally if change is done properly and it's done using the lean methodology and the lean structure, it is for the best, and you will get back up to that level of your job is better for yourself because you've empowered the people who are the experts, the people who do it. They are finding the solutions, so they are making the change and making it stick. So that brings us to the end of the slides.